Hey guys! It's time to redesign Nabu. I really like him. He's so unique among the rest of our cast and such an interesting character. Up until they killed him off, at least. I still don't understand why they did that. Anyways, let's get started. Nabu is an Androssian noble, a high society guy, but not too high society that he ended up stifled by it. His parents are much more fun and relaxed than Aisha's are, and there's a lot less pressure in general in his life. He received a very good education at a private school in Andros, and is quite intelligent. Recently, he graduated from a sorcerer's college there as well. He's a little bit older than the rest of our cast, at age 20. Everyone else is 18 in Season 2 except for Bloom and Diaspro, who are 17, and Stella, who's 19. On his 20th birthday, his parents informed him that the king and queen of Andros had chosen him to wed their daughter, Princess Aisha. He's surprised at this and feels very weird about marrying someone he's never met. He always assumed his parents would be the ones to find him a good partner, and actually enjoyed being able to focus on his passions without having to worry about romance. But he did expect a courting period as well before jumping straight to marriage. They assure him that she is a sweet girl, and though he trusts their judgment, he decides he must see her for himself if he's going to spend his life with her. Then he finds out that he can't meet her, not for several more months at least since she is away at school, but he manages to find out that she's attending Althea and decides to go there himself to learn more about her. He rents a small apartment near the school and begins his search for the princess. He knows this is kind of a lot for someone to do, so maybe he should try to do it without her knowing. A pseudonym might help, he thinks, and he chooses the name Ophir.
And why are we talking about Ophir?
In our world, this is apparently the name of a city from the Bible, the legitimacy of which is highly debated. If it was real, it would have been known for its riches, specifically gold. There are a few places theorized to be possible locations for the city, including India and Zimbabwe. It's actually a super clever pick for his name in my opinion, especially considering how Winx Club usually goes about naming their characters. One day, while the girls are in Zenith City, Ophir tries to introduce himself to Aisha at a dance club. She isn't super receptive, since the reason the Winx all went out dancing was to get her mind off the news of her arranged marriage. Noticing their friend being uncomfortable, Stella and Bloom grab her as Musa shoos away the unwanted suitor. In that moment of interaction, he felt such a strange feeling looking in her eyes, and he knew he needed to know more. What does a learned man like him know other than to study? But after such an embarrassing rejection, Nabu knows he can't get caught again. He needs to be a lot sneakier, or he's going to seem like a crazy stalker rando, and that is just going to make things a whole lot more awkward down the line. A few days later, when trying to follow Aisha around while she happened to be talking about the news of her arranged marriage, she boarded a ship, and just as the door was closing, he panicked and climbed on as well. He had heard them say it was a red fountain ship, and they were with a bunch of specialists, so he figured it would just be going back to that school. How would he know that this ship was much larger than the usual ships assigned to students? Yeah, this ship wasn't going to be flying back to Red Fountain. Beginning to feel like a lot more time had passed than he expected, Nabu looks out the small window in the storage area where he was hiding, and suddenly felt his heart drop as he saw nothing but ocean. Nabu had boarded the ship as the team was departing for their mission to Earth, and the only portal capable of transporting their entire ship at once had been moved into magical storage hundreds of years ago, meaning this ship is headed towards Omega Penitentiary and Depository, the bottom of the world. As the ship heads toward Durashix, the continent on which Omega is located, watch the map video if you haven't already. The storage area starts to get quite cold, making Nabu start to feel like he may need to reveal himself to the crew. Peeking into the cabin, he can see the Winx and specialists bundled up enjoying dinner together, making his stomach rumble as he realizes how hungry he is. He cracks and knocks on the door. On the other side, everyone freezes. "I knew this place was creepy," Stella says. Nabu knocks again and asks for permission to enter, trying to be respectful so as not to get instantly jumped when they realize he isn't a ghost. As soon as he opens the door to introduce himself, he is instantly jumped by Riven and Brandon. They hold him in place while Sky kneels down, holding his blade against the intruder's cheek as he begins to interrogate him. Aisha gasps from across the cabin, exclaiming that she recognizes him from the club a few nights ago. This gets the rest of the Winx to jump up and transform, ready to beat the shit out of him. Immediately he yells out, "Wait, please, I'm not some kind of freak. I'm your fiancé," which thankfully gets the group to pause. Aisha tentatively comes forward to look at him, but instead turns to Musa, covering her face and saying she just can't deal with this. Musa looks at Riven and motions for the boys to get this guy out of here. Sky insists they can't just drop him in the snow, so instead he's locked in the holding cell where monsters usually go. Back in the cabin, the girls are comforting Aisha and discussing what they're going to tell Farragonda, when suddenly Timmy's voice comes over the loudspeaker. Attention passengers! Please brace for impact as we are approaching the Earthbound portal. Way ahead of schedule, I might add. And before Techna can run to the cockpit where Timmy and Helia are, the whole ship begins to shake as they pass through the portal to the world of humans. As the ship passes through the portal, all the lights cut out and the power switches to emergency backup. As the aircraft touches down and Bloom looks outside, she sees the portal close behind them, leaving the Earth's moon shining solo in the sky. For the time being, communications with Magix are down, and the gang is gonna have to deal with their stowaway on their own. While on Earth, the group is living in the Red Fountain ship. That way, they don't need to do anything crazy to pay rent. After passing through the portal knocked out most of the ship's electronics, the group had to spend a few days parked in that spot while Timmy and Techna worked to get everything back up and running. While they were waiting for communications to come back, Riven took the job of guarding the prisoner, only switching with Sky, Brandon, or Bloom every now and then to get sleep and to eat and stuff. He sits in silence, watching over him as Nabu tries to make conversation. Eventually, Aisha comes in to join them with Musa in tow for moral support. She sits and listens to Nabu explain himself, and after a while decides that he isn't a threat, even if what he did was creepy. She knows how clueless nobility can be. Nabu is a bit shocked by that statement, having never been called clueless before, but he can't really deny it after all this. I think it's an interesting character point that he gets introduced in a way that's kind of icky. I'm using it as an example of his impulsiveness and spontaneity, and his overblown trust in his ability to talk his way out of a weird situation. He's a man who craves adventure and fantasized about living a life like he's read about from the explorers of old. So maybe he didn't fully think about the consequences his actions could have had. A lot more of his character arc would be him learning to actually be street smart and act more cautiously while retaining that daring nature and thirst for adventure. And for his design, finally we have a guy who isn't literally enrolled in a military academy and working out for homework, so I was able to give him a nice little soft belly. He's still quite active, just in the way that he's always out and about, going to rich people things and museums and probably visiting dig sites and stuff, but this is also definitely a guy who frequently enjoys a decadent meal. Another first in this design is facial hair. Nabu takes really good care of his hair. You could see the nice little braid I gave him all neat and tidy, so I wanted to add a bit of scruffiness somehow. Not necessarily in a messy way, just in a way that shows he's not overly formal or pompous. So I gave him a short beard and these little curls that frame his face. Stylizing facial hair was very difficult for me. I've never known how to do that in my whole life, so I'm pretty happy with how it came out for this design. Eventually, Timmy and Techna get the ship back to normal, and Nabu ends up staying with them for their time on Earth, seeing it as an opportunity to learn a lot of new things and hopefully make up for his rough start with Aisha by helping out where he can. They activate the newly installed cloaking system and basically turn the ship invisible, then fly it all the way to where I have decided Bloom is from.
New York City.
Or, well, Gardenia is at least an outer part of it, like, I don't know, Queens or something. Just because it's a place I'm familiar with and this is my rewrite and I'm having fun, okay? Then they go to a forested park nearby and park the ship there. Oh, I just realized I never actually told you why they're going to Earth, did I? At least not definitively. So I guess you're finding out alongside Nabu, who's really taking all of this quite well, I think. After the defeat of Lord Darkar, the Tricks were sent to the Rehabilitation Center on Light Rock Island. Despite the severity of their crimes, they are still teenagers, and whoever it would be that sentenced them, maybe King Radius? Or would it be the Company of Light or something? I must admit I haven't thought enough about the legal system on Magix. But anyway, whoever it was that sentenced them didn't want to judge them harshly simply because they are the descendants of the ancestral witches. So maybe their punishment was a little bit lighter than it should have been. While serving time in the monastery, the Tricks stumble across an old, tattered book mentioning a man who plunged the world into darkness and changed the very magic of it forever. A man they'd never heard of, somehow wiped from the collective mind of Magix's people, someone the likes of which history books dare not name. Except, hold on, Stormy actually recognizes this story. Her mother used to tell her a bedtime story about her many great-grandmother, one of the founders of witchcraft, in which they raised a little boy to be an incredibly powerful and dastardly witch, but he was locked away by those who did not understand him and feared his magic. The Tricks break out of rehab and set off to go find this guy, figuring if they want to finish what the ancestral witches started, they could use someone who was there. And where is his crystalline prison located? In the least magical place it can be. Earth. So, the Winx and the Specialists were sent to Earth to stop them, since they had defeated the Tricks once before. Think of it almost like an internship credit, and Nabu is here too now. They spend a good amount of time there before anything really happens. Bloom and Stella visit Mike and Vanessa a whole bunch, bringing Sky and Brandon along as well sometimes. Flora and Helia check out the wildlife. Musa, Tekna, and Aisha go to some clubs and enjoy Earth media. Timmy works on the ship and sleeps a lot, but finds great joy in Earth food. Riven doesn't really seem very interested in this new planet, and he and Musa have been fighting lately, so he mostly stays behind with Nabu, since he's still adjusting to the group, and Riven thinks he needs some kind of security on him anyways. The two seem like they're even starting to become friends somehow. They're on a non-magical planet now, and there are 4 people who have devoted their lives to keeping it that way. This means that every time they use their magic, they draw ever closer the Wizards of the Black Circle. Nabu is the one they end up tracking the most, sensing that his magic specifically is witch magic, the worst of all, whether he wants to believe it or not. This means, of course, that the Wizards are hot on the heels of the Tricks as well, who are a lot more reckless when it comes to keeping themselves hidden. They don't particularly want to be harassed by Earth cops, but they aren't afraid of having to deal with them. They just think it would be annoying. Eventually, their pursuit of the Tricks leads the Winx to cross paths with the Wizards of the Black Circle. There is an initial standoff, with the Wizards making a brief display of their power. When Nabu sees this, he jumps between the two factions. He shouts for them all to wait, saying that these men are wizards like him, not the witches they've been chasing. That's when Ogeron steps forward and motions for the other wizards to stand down. He says that they've been searching for witches themselves and thought they'd finally found them. Well then, it seems they have a common interest. For Nabu's first outfit here, I was going for something that feels more aristocratic and wealthy. He's a man that cares about culture and tradition and enjoys actively being a part of the upper crust of Andros. So I wanted this outfit to feel structured and expensive. I got a lot of inspiration from Indian and African formal wear, since I imagine Nabu to be mixed race, Black and South Asian. I thought this asymmetrical hemline was perfect for the kind of vibe I was going for, and I liked how I was able to add a bit of detail with the trim. He's got jewelry too, lots of gold, and you'll see as we go on that I really like the idea of Nabu wearing heels, so I put some gold on them too. After this initial meeting, the Winx hesitantly follow the Wizards back to their hideout as they explain who they are, a secret society that has guarded the Earth for centuries. They are the descendants of the leaders of a group who left magics for a better life. They saw all the destruction and pain that came from living in a magical world, and so sought out a new home where they could be free of it. Despite seeming to be presenting themselves as their allies now, the girls are still wary of these so-called wizards. Being magical creatures themselves, it seems as though they're being accused of causing this pain. However, in the efforts of stopping the Tricks, they allow the temporary alliance to continue. It isn't until they've returned to the ship later on that everyone voices their opinions on these new characters, and it seems they are all mostly in agreement regarding their creepiness, except for Nabu. He sees no reason to doubt that these men are pursuing a noble cause. They use magic themselves, so they must know it isn't exclusively dangerous. Plus, they invited the Winx into their home, so they must trust them. Why not return the trust? Everyone shifts uncomfortably. Then Aisha speaks up, hoping to ease the tension. She brings up her own introduction to the group, how they accepted her despite her initial deception about who she was. Riven speaks too. He was able to regain their trust and become part of the team again. Helia mentions that even Diaspro has become a trusted friend despite her past with them. Reluctantly, the rest of the group agrees to work with the Wizards, though Bloom in particular is pretty steamed about it. The next day, they arrive at the Wizards' hideout, and it's immediately clear that they seem to have taken Nabu under their wing. He's fascinated by the history they have on display, ancient relics from their homeworld that seem to be untouched by time. Meanwhile, Bloom is being held back after seeing artifacts from Domino. The Wizards tell the group that they believe they know what the Tricks are after, or rather, whom. They want to unleash a monster with power unlike anything they've ever seen. Luckily, the only people who know where his prison is kept are standing right in front of them. The Winx work with the Wizards for only a brief time before discovering the more violent side of their pursuits. However, it was enough time for Nabu to feel the bond that he'd made with them. Unlike the others, he'd opened up, described life on Magix, and listened to their stories too. He was blindsided when they showed their true colors. I'll be going into more detail in Roxy's video, of course, but it is upon the discovery of her fairiness that the wizards reveal just how it is that they protect the earth from the affliction of magic. After they turn out not to be such great guys, the Winx are quick to turn on them, but Nabu doesn't want to believe he could have been so wrong. He definitely projected onto them, a group of wizards, scholars of magic and history, following in traditions set without their input, and facing the distrust of a group whom he wished to fight alongside himself. All of his time in libraries, museums, temples, and he still made the wrong choice. Later that night, under the trees and stars, Riven tries to be there for his new friend. It's a thing he's been doing. Since he understands his position, of course, he helps talk him through it, even telling him about how Darcy broke his heart. The next time they meet, with a battle in full swing, the wizards offer Nabu the choice of staying on Earth and joining them. They look to Aisha, pointing out how clear it is her feelings for him will never be romantic. He will never be king. If he joins them instead, he would be at the top of the world, the only magical guardians on Earth, and a ruling force that can never be toppled. All he has to do is take down these disgusting fairies. When Nabu refuses, he's met with the rage of all 4 of the wizards, and wounded so badly the specialists are forced to retreat while the Winx give them cover. But before he was struck, Nabu did manage to take out the wizard Duman, because I think it's cool as hell that they did that in the show, and I just want to keep it. Nabu fucking kills somebody.
Let me out of here! I want to live! No!
Nabu's down for the count and needs to be looked after while the battle continues. Riven offers to stay behind, and the others charge back out there. This outfit was so freaking hard to nail down. I was looking at references and inspo pics for days trying to come up with something that would both feel analogous to his look from the original and a logical progression from my first outfit design. Like, he goes from very traditional feeling robes to like a purple Ralph Lauren sweater and cargo pants. This is literally my second attempt because I struggled so much with the first one that I just scrapped it. I do like that this outfit feels more laid back though. He would have finally spent some more time away from his usual circles, meeting more people from all different walks of life. And I think having him leave behind the expensive everyday suit would be a good way to reflect that. I also wanted to somehow show a parallel to Riven in this outfit since they become so close. So that's why he's got rips in his pants. I changed his hair as well since I do like the 2 little braids he gets in the show, but I wanted to keep the length. And I thought these bubble pigtails would look really good on him. He's a fun, expressive person, and I think they just fit his personality. But also, despite not being romantically involved, he and Aisha would be good friends. So they're a reference to the way she wears her hair. It could even be an Androssian style or something. Nabu won't be waking up again until the group arrives back on Magix. So let's skip that little part of season 2, aka the ending. I want to talk for a second in a much broader sense. This video has been very story focused so far. So Nabu has magic. It's one of his many passions. I had to come up with something for his magic to be focused on. Because of his scholarly nature and love for learning, I thought it could be similar to what I did with Tekna, how she's the guardian fairy of Alfea Library, or her self-appointed title, Fairy of Information, since that first one's kind of a mouthful. But I wasn't sure I wanted to actually go down that route, so I kept doing my research. Nabu's name comes from a Babylonian god, described on Wikipedia as the patron god of literacy, the rational arts, scribes, and wisdom, which is why I made him have such a love for knowledge in the first place. So I thought it could work, but then as I was looking into the mythology of this god, it caught my eye that he was associated astrologically with Mercury. So I read that Wikipedia page, and it has some fun symbolic connections to our Nabu, like communication, adaptability, education, and curiosity. And it looks like the Roman god Mercury is even considered the counterpart to the Babylonian god Nabu. So then I was like, information, communication, messages, swiftness, and oh look, there's Thoth. Let's make Nabu's focus birds. Nabu calls himself a sorcerer. sorcerer of beak and talon to be more specific. But as we've established, this means he uses witch magic, so really he's just Witch of Birds. Since I took away the phoenix symbolism from Darkar, now we get to really lean into it for Nabu. Back home in Andros, Nabu does have a pet bird. I'm thinking a dove, since they're basically just prettier pigeons, which were used for communication, tying back to that stuff from before. But since it's on Magix, it's probably like a lavender dove or something, I don't know. When the gang meets Roxy, I'm thinking they'll probably try to figure out what her fairy title is, and after a bunch of tries, maybe Nabu grabs a pigeon off the ground and is like, how about birds? And Roxy actually does feel a spark, just a tiny one, but they're on the right track. Nabu definitely gets her to open up to them a bit more, alongside Helia, by just how much he loves talking about Magix. He enjoys studying it and everything, but thanks to his magic, he also gets to experience a bird's eye view of the world, which the girls agree is an experience like no other. Throughout this adventure he found himself on, Nabu grew closer with the group, but when it comes down to it, the person he really bonded with was Riven. They spent a lot of time together at the ship, played card games, sparred a bit here and there, and talk to each other about their girl problems. Nabu is impulsive. He's always been able to talk his way out of tight spots, and is actually pretty self-aware and socially capable when he's in his element. If he met Aisha at a gala or a conference, maybe he could have swept her off her feet, and then they could fulfill their parents' arrangement happily. But Riven's known Aisha for a while now. She's his girlfriend's best friend after all, and he's not so sure Nabu would have had a chance in any scenario. Now here's Riven of all people, in a position where he's gotta give relationship advice to a guy pursuing his friend that he's pretty sure is a lesbian. Meanwhile, he's barely getting along with his own girlfriend. He ends up telling him to try to be just friends with her. Don't jump into it pretending like there's a romance just because you got a letter that says there should be. Aisha's a cool person. Maybe spend less time sucking up to some random wizards and spend more time getting to know her instead. And hopefully see that she's not going to fall for you all on your own. Nabu accepts the advice, but counters that maybe he needs to be more romantic with Musa, since they are already past that friend stage. But Riven doesn't think that's what she wants from him. You don't think she wants romance from her boyfriend? Nabu asks in confusion. Wow, see how these two are communicating? Why can't Riven do that with Musa? Long story short, the two become each other's confidants, and eventually, Riven and Musa realized they were better off as friends when they weren't putting so much pressure on each other to be what they needed. Instead, next season, Musa finds what she needs in Aisha, and Riven finds what he needs in Nabu. There's no ill will between the two couples. In fact, I'm sure they go on double dates all the time. They work out that the arrangement will continue for political reasons, and one day, Nabu will become king of Andros alongside his knight, and Aisha can move to Melody with Musa. I really wanted Nabu's sorcerer design to have his hair down, since he always wears it tied back in some way in his day-to-day life. I thought the idea of his transformation to a sorcerer form dramatically letting his hair down would be a great moment. It could also represent him feeling freer and more confident in this form. Not that he's unconfident to begin with, though. His outfit is based on Indian formal wear, and I really like the idea of him having this draped garment I saw in a lot of looks that I believe would be an angavastram. I hope I pronounced that okay. I do look up how to pronounce unfamiliar words, but this one just didn't have very good examples. I believe it's angavastram. Angavastram? It might be angavastram. Anyway, yeah, you saw me do a few iterations, but I wanted this longer style because I feel like it almost mimics the shape of a classic wizard robe, and I think it complements the volume he has in his hair. I thought it would be cool to give him a hood too, but it just ended up feeling like it was a bit too much. Also, with every one of these outfits, finding the right shades of purple to use was kind of difficult. I sort of kneecapped myself by giving him purpler hair because his outfits were then so heavily purple that I was worrying about them drowning each other out. This look is definitely the one that stayed closest to his original colors. And here's a fun addition to this character. I mentioned before that we're giving Nabu the phoenix symbolism that we took away from Darkar. He's Witch of Birds. He has a pet bird, and he goes into a coma-like state because of his injuries fighting the wizards of the Black Circle. Rising from the the ashes later on after returning to Althea. Because of all this, and the fact that I want Nabu's sorcerer form to be incredibly flashy and beautiful and fun, I thought it would be a cool addition to give him these spectral wings. I think that they would probably not be something he knows how to do until after he wakes up from his healing slumber. Pretty much every witch can fly after like a year or two of study, so these wings would need other functions. They definitely assist in flight, giving enhanced speed and agility, allowing him to course correct with the insane precision of raptors, but they also serve as a sort of shield, a way for him to protect himself more efficiently after going through a near-death experience. Before meeting the Winx, Nabu hadn't been in a position like that. He always craved adventure and excitement, but once he actually managed to get in a real fight, he found that he was woefully underprepared. Unlike fairy wings, these wings are not actually part of his body. He doesn't feel pain when they're injured, only sensing instead that their durability has been affected. They shine brightest at their full power. I tried to make the wings look more like an apparition than fairy wings do by blurring the line art and shading the edges slightly darker with a gentle airbrushing. I was going for a translucent kind of look with them, so you can see the very ends are faded a bit too. And of course, they have an ethereal shimmer and sparkle to them. It's been forever since I drew a big pair of wings like this, but I think I like how they turned out. I feel like I stylized them just enough without losing too much detail, and I like how they look nice and fluffy, but still elegant and mystical. Nabu is such a beloved character that I really think got screwed over by the original show. It was so important to me to give him a super solid personality and character identity, and for it to impact his role in the story. I hope his outfits have the dignified yet quirky guy vibe I was going for. I really gave it my best shot. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments, and maybe subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Whether new or old subscribers, you make me so happy. These videos are a lot of work, but it's been so much fun sharing them with you, and I love hearing about your ideas. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!